people every week. And that's when I want you. So good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's nice to see you all.
You have a book in your hand.
Yes, I do. I usually do. Most any time you would find me, you'll find me with a book in my hand. It's yeah, except I haven't written the book. Larry often writes them, refusing them to write something beautiful. So today's talk is called, it's actually, Scott's just saying the song Seeing is Believing, but today's talk is actually called Believing is Seeing.
Oh, I messed it up.
You set me to the top. That was an Elvis Presley song, by the way. And Believing is Seeing, or Seeing is Believing. That's the one Scott just sang. Seeing is Believing. Today's talk is called Believing is Seeing.
I'm very confused.
It's okay. Well, of course you are. That's why we're here. Believing is seeing is what we teach in metaphysics. And it's based on the universal principle of proper perspective. We must get a proper perspective of life, of God, of ourselves. Charles Fillmore, in the second chapter of Dynamics for Living, says that the first step in a right relation to God is a right understanding of God. Because you see, once you have a right understanding of God, you have a right understanding of yourself. And as long as I'm trying to figure myself out, I'm not going to have a proper perspective. As long as I'm trying to figure it out, what I'm saying is, I got it from here, God. That's what we're really saying. As long as I'm trying to figure it out, as long as I'm trying to make it up, what I'm saying is, oh, okay, I got it from here, God. You can rest a little bit. God can be depended upon. God is available all of the time. G-O-D. But we have to get a right understanding of God. I was at a dinner party last night, and I was talking to an intellectual, a scientist no less, who has always had difficulty being at parties with me because I talk about this stuff. And last night we came to a common understanding, and he was so pleased. And I was so pleased because he was talking about immutable laws. And I couldn't tell you the scientist he was talking about, who has said that, but we came to the agreement that we're saying the same thing. A couple of people at the party were having a hard time. They said, "Oh, I don't want to hear that because it was too dry and too cold." But what he's saying is, love simply is. It's not that God is love and loving and everything. Love simply is. Wisdom simply is. Peace simply is. Joy simply is. And what we're doing is taking the romance out of God, which some people don't want us to do. That we still want to think that He's doing for me and He's going to do for me. And that's not a right understanding of God. That's not putting God in proper perspective. It sounds nice, but what we're doing is holding on to a limited God. We're holding on to a God who might get around to us. We're holding onto a God who has an opinion about us. And quite frankly, we don't walk up these steps at 3 Main Street above the Ford dealership for a God that has an opinion about us. We're seeking to put that God aside, believe it or not, so that we can have the really big God. You know, our God has expanded. Obviously, we're here. Our God has expanded from our youth. But it can be even more. It can be even more. Listen to this from my Metaphysical Bible by Mr. Renford. It's the smallest Bible. Oh, by the way, in case you don't, we did get the Oxford Study Bibles in that Ed Townley recommended. They're over there in the bookstore, $35 each. But the law of proper perspective, the universal law of proper perspective, states that we must know ourselves, where we are, and where we want to go. Only then can we exercise free will, and there would be no logical reason for us to be here without free will. Only with proper perspective can we use the pure potentiality that is ours. Only with proper perspective can we attract opportunities or make the right choices. Only with proper perspective can we draw on the creative powers of universal being. The universal laws are logical, as universal being is pure thought and the highest form of logic. And so, to begin making assumptions, let's just start with that in proper perspective. Let's begin making assumptions. God is good. I am good. Make that assumption every day, every minute, every second of your life. God is good. I am good. Do not try to figure out how God is good. Yeah, and you'll start limiting and romanticizing God. Yeah, because what I'm seeking to do here is ask you, do you still want your story about God, or do you want to exercise the full power of God? If you want the story of God, that's fine, but you're still going to have your lack then, and you're going to have your problems, and you're going to have sin, sickness, and death. Because within the story of God is limitation. But within the reality of God, all health is possible. All wealth is possible. All harmony is possible within the reality of God. When we set aside the illusion of God and accept the reality. Because remember, God is just a word. It's just a word that we have given for the bigness that we cannot describe. For the reality that we cannot describe. God is a word for a common language that we have chosen to use. The man at the party last night, he doesn't use the word God. He just said love is. Wisdom is. Power is. Truth is. Immutable laws. That is. I had to make a decision years ago. I would rather have what God is than my story about God. Because what I found out is I live bigger and better with what God is than I do with my story about God. And I like that. We watched the Bible, we watched the first half of Mark the other night here for the Bible night. And what I discovered is, without proper translation, the Bible presents a rather limited view of God, but it's intended for, well, especially this version, it seems, the lowest common denominator of understanding of the Bible. And if you metaphysically interpret it, though, and you see there's what we call miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle taking place. And that, to me, is what's so important about the Gospels, is to notice those miracles, because what they are, if you'll pay attention, are everyday events in Jesus' life. They aren't special events. The miracles are everyday events in Jesus' life. I also had to laugh that he gives instructions after almost every miracle. Now, don't tell anybody. Go forth, go home, enjoy your life. Don't tell anybody. Well, and then after they told people that Jesus was surrounded by other people. So the reason for not telling everybody is don't make it special. Let it be normal. Let health be your normal state. Let wealth be your normal state. Let harmony be your normal state. Let this become the norm. Understand that this is reality, not the other stuff. The sin, the sickness, and the death, that's not the real world. The real world is the one of wholeness. The real world is the one of understanding one's power. So faith in God isn't about faith that He will give me what I want. It isn't about that He is doing for me. It's that G-O-D is. God is. That's what my favorite meditation is. On the in-breath, I think God is. And on the out-breath, I am. Because we need to start getting into the habit of thinking, I am what God is. I am what God is. Well, if God is love, then I am love. If God is peace, then I am peace. If God is joy, then I am joy. If God is truth, then I am truth. And then we're not focusing so much on the ways of the world, the confusion that has been the world we have seen. If you put the world into proper perspective, then you could just sum it up to confusion, couldn't you? Confusion and everyone making an attempt to agree with God. And I mean everyone. The people I like and the people I don't like have all been making an attempt to agree with God. But in the confusion, resistance has come up. In my confusion, I began to fear that I would lose what little I have. And so I struggled to hold on to what little I have instead of saying, oh, there's so much more than what I've imagined. I don't have to fear losing this because I have everything. When Emmett Fox, in his book about the Ten Commandments, says, thou canst do these things, he doesn't say thou shalt not. He said what it means is thou canst. Thou canst steal. Because who would you be stealing from? We're under the illusion that we own our possessions. We're under some crazy illusion that we own the stuff we have. If my mother had owned the stuff she had, she'd have taken it with her. Trust me, she'd have packed it all up and taken it with her. Every one of those tchotchkes would have been packed up and taken with her. All those hundreds of dresses and shoes and everything would have been taken with her. I would have been taken with her. Every possession she had would have been taken with her. Obviously, she didn't own a thing. Even the body she didn't take with her. So let's not kid ourselves. Let's get it into proper perspective. We can't steal because there's nothing to steal. We can't covet even because there's nothing to covet. It's all an illusion. What a relief. What a great big relief. Let's get God into proper perspective. In the Course in Miracles, somewhere up in the 80s or 90s, one of the lessons says, God is not a perceiver of our problems. And I've talked about this before, but I loved when I read this lesson because it told me, oh, I have been trying to get God to see what's wrong and fix it. But because God can only see what God is, God doesn't have any problems. You and I must become willing to see as God sees. If I am what God is, then I have God's vision. If love is, then I'm able to see love. What I find is I'm rather entertained by pretending there's an absence of love and getting together with others to chat about this absence. Anybody else here? Entertained? Don't you find it entertaining to talk about what's wrong with the world? Oh my goodness. What?
Not anymore as much.
Yeah, we still have our compartments.
Election year.
Yeah.
You know, and so we have our compartments, our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, each other, the dirty carpet, the stained ceiling, the walls that are caving in on us, the traffic, our past. A past is a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
To pretend that there's lack. Oh my goodness, the lack in my past. Until I decide, on the days I decide, okay, we're going to take the dividers away. It's all God.
Again. Throwing the book away.
And so, to rethink our past and say, my past is good. And there's no story. No, I don't have to know why. I do not have to know why. But my past is good. Who was my friend Joy was telling me the other day that she had a friend who put on her Facebook page, don't judge me by my past, I don't live there anymore.
Wow.
My past is good because I'm in the present. When I'm not in the present, my past has problems. But the present, when I came into unity, they told me things that I believed and I made assumptions. They told me God was good all the time. Fine. I prefer that than my version. They told me it was logical to go from there. If God is good all the time, then you, Shawn, are good all the time. We're not talking about how you behave. We're not talking about how you feel. We're talking about the exact nature of your being. You're good all the time. Fine. I preferred that to my old version. I imagine many of you would prefer that to your old version. You're good. And then they said, those other people are good all the time and have always been good. even when they've been confused. Okay, fine. If it means I'll be set free, then fine. They're good. I might still complain about them, but they're good. And so, I began to see things differently. I began to look at the world very different. And I began to see what I was believing instead of believing what I was seeing. Because I changed my belief system, I began to see good in the world. I began to see my beliefs instead of using the world to give me some beliefs. And there's the difference. Don't use your body to tell you what's wrong. Use your belief system to tell your body what's right. Don't use your wallet or your bank account to tell you what's wrong with money. Use your belief system. Use these promises to tell your wallet and your bank account the truth about money and abundance. Don't use your children's behavior, your parents' behavior, your own behavior to tell you what's wrong in the world, your politicians' behavior. Don't use that to convince you and tell you what you ought to believe. Use your belief system to inform the world of what is true, to let you see what is true in the world. And suddenly you're going to look around and not have nearly so much to complain about. The traffic is going to shift in your mind. The universe will show up for your beliefs instead of your beliefs showing up for the universe. The law of proper perspective means first things first. It means God first. And my God thought leads to my thought of myself, my thought of my body, my thought of my relationships, my thought of my life, my all, everything, my money, my everything. And so let it start from the top instead of finding the problem and saying, okay, now bring it to God. No, bring God to the problem so that you can see that there really isn't a problem. It's not that God's going to fix the problem. It's that you're going to see correctly when you see with God's eyes. Imagine looking in the mirror, as I've done so many times, and say, hi, God. And when I do that, I'm not thinking about my weight, my hairline. I'm not thinking about what was done to me as a child or yesterday or 5 minutes. Hi, God. You kind of have to smile with that. First things first, you don't have to understand what it means. What a relief. I don't have to understand what all this God stuff means. I could just make an assumption. God is good. God is what I need. Hi, God. Hi, God. Imagine you look at them. Hi, God. And suddenly there's a happy being looking back at you. A very happy being. And it's not reliant upon conditions. Nobody has to do anything nice for you to look in the mirror first thing in the morning or at any time during the day. Hi, God. Conditions do not have to change on the highway for you to love, 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 love. Love, 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 love. Love, love. When I start to have a thought that the world is my boss and I'm its servant, and I interrupt, oh no, love, 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 love. I don't want to be right about that thought. Love, 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 love. You interrupt, find your word. Mine is love, love, love. But find your word. Your word that interrupts the thought that isn't true. So that you can begin to see what you believe. And believe that God is first. God is present. And you are present in the presence of God. Believe God is good. I am good. I assume it. They promised it. It must be true. They promised it. It must be true. God is good. I am good. God is good. I am good. God is good. I am good. And so it is.